my name is Beck and today I'm going to be talking about some anticipated releases for 2020. I think pretty much all of these are sequels and I don't actually know any release dates off the top of my head, so this is going to be fun. But let's just jump into the first book that is on this list, and it's Lollipops by Jessica Townsend, and this is the third book in the Nevermore series. This is a really, really beautiful middle grade series. It follows Morrigan Crow and she believes that she's cursed, but she tries to escape the curse and run away from her family, and she gets taken away to Nevermore, and it's this really magical world where she gets to learn about her magic and her powers and also the magic of the world. So it involves pretty much one of my favorite tropes, which is a magical school, and it's just got such fun, wholesome writing, but it also has the potential to get dark as well. But it's just beautiful. I love it so much, and it's also by an Australian author, so bonus points. But I've loved Nevermore, I've loved Wondersmith, and I'm really highly anticipating the next book, so that's why it made it first onto this list. It is a middle grade fantasy book. It's a portal fantasy, so it's kind of like Narnia, where you go through the wardrobe and you're in this magical world. Morrigan Crow went through a portal into Nevermore, and that's kind of where she lives with this interesting and unique family. There's a giant talking cat and there's this wizard that she lives with. It's just incredible, so definitely go and read it. It's so much fun and I'm highly anticipating the sequel. The next book on this list is not middle grade at all. It is more adult, I guess. Kind of on the cusp of young adult and adult, but it is Come Tumbling Down by Seanan Maguire, and this is the next installment for her novella series. So I've got the others behind me. The first one is Every Heart a Doorway, and then I've got In an Absent Dream, which is actually the fourth book, and I don't have the two in between. They're just so good. They're so diverse when it comes to sexuality and gender, which is something that I haven't seen quite a lot in fiction, and I'd like to see more of it, especially in fantasy. And again, these are also portal fantasies like Nevermore was. So the basic premise is, at least for Every Heart a Doorway, is these characters have gone through into portal worlds that really suit their personalities. So after they go to those worlds and then come back, nothing in their real world has changed, and it's like a blink of an eye. So how do they adapt from knowing all of this magic and being involved so much to back to, I guess, mundane life where none of that magic necessarily exists? And this is a fairly common occurrence, and this character who had it happen to her when she was quite young created a school, so all of the people who are experiencing this kind of thing can go there and get, I guess, find a uniformity and a chosen family situation. Again, magical school, chosen family, two things that I love. But I also really enjoy the characters in these books. Because there's a cast of them, it would be easy to kind of write them off and have them as stereotypes or caricatures, but Seanan Maguire doesn't do that at all. They all have their own personalities, their own kind of weird reactions to things, and their own backstories and everything. And I believe Come Tumbling Down is one of the backstories of two of the characters that we've met previously. But I read the blurb a little while ago and then I wanted to forget about it so that I didn't remember what it was about, because I love going into these not knowing anything. So I've kind of wiped it a little bit from my memory, but I love these books regardless. I have not given them anywhere below 4 stars, so that's why I'm excited for Come Tumbling Down. And I think it comes out in like January, so it's something that I'm going to keep an eye out at the start of next year. This next one, I don't know if it's right, because it could be a 2021 release date, but I've got it on my list as 2020. So definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the 4th Bone Season book by Samantha Shannon is coming out next year. After adoring The Mime Order, which is the second book, and then really enjoying The Song Rising, I'm so happy to read more in this series. I did read Prairie of the Orange Tree by her and I liked it, but I just have a special place in my heart for the Bone Season books. They're an urban fantasy set in London, and it follows this girl named Paige, and in this world clairvoyants are criminals, and Paige is a clairvoyant and therefore she's classed as a criminal, and she gets kidnapped one day and taken basically to this camp where she has to be a labourer, and that's where she runs into this master named Warden, and it's just so complicated that I find it really, really hard to describe without spoilers. But Samantha Shannon has said on Twitter that this is her favourite Bone Season book so far, and I know that it follows Paige and Warden, and I'm so hyped. I love both of them so much. Paige is just so raw and vulnerable, but also so strong at the same time, and I love seeing that in her. And when she started the books, she was like 19, and I believe she's grown quite a lot since. Not too much. I think she's in her early 20s. I'm just super excited for this to come out. I feel like I've been waiting for it forever. There was like a 2-year gap between The Mime Order and The Song Rising, so books 2 and 3, and I was lucky that I got on board with the series just as The Song Rising was being published, so I didn't have any any of that waiting, so this wait has been killing me just a little bit. The next book is by another hyped and popular author, especially on Twitter, and it is by V.E. Schwab, and it's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So it's the book that she's writing at the moment, and I believe it follows this girl who does a deal with the devil to effectively become immortal, and they end up being the only constants in each other's lives. So I think V.E. Schwab is going to do this thing where she delves into the morality of this kind of thing and the relationships and how important they are and how ephemeral everything is for Addie LaRue. I think it's going to be a fairly deep book and a fairly dark book, but I'm still looking forward to it regardless because I really like the morality that Victoria Schwab or V.E. Schwab explores in her writing, and that's one of the reasons why I'm super psyched for Addie LaRue. Again, don't know when this is coming out next year, but I'll put the month or whatever on the screen so that you know, because I don't. The next one is by an author that I discovered this year. She's written a few things, but I only discovered her this year from one of her more recent series. So I loved the 5th season when I read it earlier this year, and N.K. Jemisin is coming out with a new book. I don't know if it's a standalone or if it's the first in a series, but it's called The City We Became, and I've seen this in a few anticipated releases videos, so I think it's fairly known that she's writing a new book. But what I love about N.K. Jemisin is that she really involves the setting of her fantasy world as kind of a character, and she's definitely going to be doing this in this new release. Just from what I read of the blurb, which I now can't remember, I know she involves the setting quite significantly, and that's what she did in the 5th season. Read the 5th season if you haven't. Side note, super psyched for this new one from her. Don't know if I'll do it on audiobook or physically because I did all of the 5th season on audiobook and I really enjoyed those, so we'll see. But regardless, super psyched for this. She's one of my new favorite authors, so of course she was going to appear in this list. Next we have another one by another one of my favorite authors, Jay Kristoff. So he is writing a new series, and he finished Nevernight this year, which I'm sad about, but it's okay because it was a brilliant series. So after finishing Dark Dawn, he has started a new series called Empire of the Vampire, and he said it's going to be a very dark and bloody version of vampires, none of this sparkly stuff of like Twilight, because I know Jay Kristoff grew up reading a lot of Stephen King books, so you can definitely see that dark influence in some of his writing, and I think that's going to kind of be the track he goes down in Empire of a Vampire. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I haven't read vampire books in ages, and I'm just so psyched that they're kind of coming back because I've missed them. I loved Twilight. I loved Vampire Academy. I loved, oh man, what was it called? Anita Blake. All of them are trash, but all of them are amazing to me. So vampires, special place in my heart. I can't wait for this series. I think it comes out like late next year because all of his other releases for Nevernight have been in September. So he said this would replace Nevernight in his release schedule. So I'm assuming at the end of next year that we'll get Empire of a Vampire. Now this next one I mentioned briefly in my drawing book covers video, but it is the prequel book to The Hunger Games. So it is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm pretty sure that's right. I'll put it on the screen anyway, so you'll be able to see if I'm right or not. But I don't know when this comes out, maybe March? That's just a wild guess. But I'm, again, really hyped for this. I'm one of those people that devoured and loved The Hunger Games growing up, especially when I was like 16, 15, 17, around that time. And I saw them all at midnight screenings when they got adapted to film. And honestly, I'm just really excited to do a reread of this series because I loved it so much, and it's so dark and it's so relevant to society at the moment, which is also terrifying, but it's just so good. I only know that it's set like 60 or something years before Katniss's Hunger Games, and that's all I know about it. I haven't read any blurb or anything, and I'm just going to go in based on knowing that, because the less I know about it, the less I can, I don't know, map out the way it's going to go. I didn't predict anything in the Hunger Games, so I don't know why I think I could predict anything in this one, but regardless, super stoked, super excited. I have wanted more Hunger Games stuff for so many years, and now we're finally getting it, so. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is Aurora Burning by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and this is their sequel to Aurora Rising. So I did a book talk on Aurora Rising. I will link it, I don't know where the card appears. I really loved Aurora Rising, and I'm looking forward so much to the sequel because of the way that Aurora Rising ended. I'm like, ooh, are they going to stick to the decisions they made, or are they going to kind of twist them around and make it so that things turn out differently? And that is my vague way of not spoiling the ending, so you're welcome. I love the fact that Cal is on the front. I loved him in Aurora Rising, and he didn't really have a major role, but he was one of the main cast, so he interacted quite a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of his story and seeing more of his culture. If you haven't read Aurora Rising and it's kind of been on your radar, it's about this this crew of people that get thrown together unwillingly. So Tyler is one of our main characters, and at the beginning of the book he's supposed to be taking his tests to become a pilot, basically, because he's the highest performer in his year level. But it turns out that he's actually away saving somebody, and he's away saving Aurora, who is on the front cover of the first book. And so he saves her, they come back, and he has missed his test, so he doesn't have first pick of anybody anymore, and he kind of gets the dregs, and they are thrown together, and it's kind of up to them to save the universe, or the galaxy as they know it, because with saving Aurora, she's been in like a cryo sleep for hundreds of years, or maybe like 100 years. I don't know how long it was, but she's been asleep for a while. And so because of that, she might have a secret that can potentially start a war between the peoples now, and that's what they're trying to prevent as a crew. So I love that even though it was a multiple perspective, there's like 6 or 7 focal point characters. Even though there were that many, I still loved all of them, and they're still very distinct voices in my head, even though I read this like a couple of months ago. So Jay and Amy have done a brilliant job at separating them all in my head. They're so funny together, their banter is great, and all of their struggles seem fairly realistic in their situation. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that develop. Next up is one of the biggest hyped fantasy releases, I'm gonna say ever, and it's Stormlight Fall, which is, I think it's called The Rhythm of War, but I don't know if that's a confirmed title or not. But it's not coming out next year, I think it's coming out 2021. But Brandon has finished, or is almost finished, the draft for Stormlight 4. So I wanted to mention it because I'm really excited about any progress he updates. He tends to put progress bars on his website, which I know he said is kind of just a habit that he brought over into being an author after being a writer, but it's something that I'm sure all of his fans appreciate. So from that and from his newsletter updates, I know that Stormlight 4 is happening and it's coming, and the draft is pretty much done, which means it's going to be worked on and it's going to come out super soon. I love the Stormlight archive. If you haven't read it, please read it. I know they're a commitment, but I would encourage you to read it anyway. Listen to the audiobook if you're concerned. I listened to Oathbringer on audiobook, which is book 3, and I liked it, but I liked physically reading it better. So definitely pick up Stormlight because it's worth it. I can't really say too much about why I'm excited about the next book, because obviously in such an epic fantasy, it will definitely have spoilers in there somewhere. I'm just psyched to see characters I love again, and I just really want to read Stormlight now. I don't know why I started talking about it, because this always happens. So we're on to the second last book, and it is a book that I've forgotten the title of, so that's great. Perfect. A+ booktuber. I am excited for the new Christopher Paolini book because I loved Eragon when I was like 14 or 15 and borrowing books from my school library. I think a lot of people around my age now, so like mid-20s, started on Eragon. I'll put the new Christopher Paolini book on the screen so you can see, but I think it's a sci-fi book. I heard Daniel Green talk about it in one of his fantasy news videos, and I can't remember if he said sci-fi or fantasy, but I've seen the announcements on Twitter, so I'm looking forward to new content from him because I really enjoyed the world building of his Eragon series, but like a lot of people, I didn't really love the ending of the inheritance cycle. So I'm hoping that since he's written that and he's taken some time off, that he's grown as a writer, because I'd love to read more of his work now that he's grown up a little bit. So again, looking forward to the new Paolini book, and I'm sorry that I've forgotten the title. And then lastly, I'm really excited for the next book by Hank Green. So I read this year and loved it. It was an unexpected 5 stars. Hank Green is writing a new book, and I think it's going to be a sequel to this series, and I heard from my friend Marie that it's going to be released in July, and I'm super pumped. I can't wait to read more in this series. It was great. Pick it up if you haven't. It's kind of like a new adult contemporary book, but with a sci-fi element mixed in. So our main character, April May, makes a discovery and then films a video with her friend and then posts it on YouTube. And it turns out that this thing that she discovered has cropped up in every country in the world. And it's really about internet fame and humanity's response to this thing that's happened. And I really liked the way that Hank Green wrote it and the way it unfolded. And I really enjoyed the beginning, middle, and end, and I was worried that the middle would just kind of coast, and it didn't. There was stuff constantly happening. So I am looking forward to the new book that Hank Green is going to bring out next year. And there you go. That is it for my anticipated releases video. I've probably missed a ton of books, but I kind of wanted to focus on authors that I'd pretty much already read or they were already on my radar. So that's why this video consisted of mostly sequels or authors I'd read before. But if I have missed any, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know what your thoughts are as well, as always. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.